Chapter 4. Captain Zavis rallied his brothers, pressing the attack against the momentarily stunned Tyranids. However, the Xenos swiftly regrouped, their hive mind adapting to the psychic assault. The Salamander's line held firm, but Zavis could see the strain on his warriors' faces. He wondered grimly how much longer they could withstand the relentless onslaught. Suddenly, his Vox crackled to life. "Weapon online, Captain." Pyroclast's voice rang out, filled with determined enthusiasm. Pyroclast loaded a large box of ammunition into the Bale Predator's twin-linked assault cannons. The Scout pressed ribbons of iron into the link injection port with practiced efficiency. Gripping the twin handles of the massive gun, Pyroclast pulled the triggers. The weapon roared to life, a deafening mechanical scream that cut through the sounds of battle. Red-hot rounds spewed forth in a relentless stream, their trajectories forming a lethal wall of lead that met the enemy lines with devastating effect. The sheer volume of fire was staggering. Ejected casings flew from the cannon in numbers too high to count, creating a brass rain around the ruined tank. Where the round struck, they tore through the Tyranid ranks with ruthless efficiency. Body parts and ichor exploded in gruesome fountains as the heavy rounds found their marks. The precision and power of the assault cannon rivaled that of a master butcher, systematically carving through the Xenos horde. "By the forge of Vulcan," Sergeant Adric breathed, his voice filled with awe. Zavis felt a surge of hope as he watched the Tyranid advance falter under the punishing barrage. "Press on, brothers!" he roared, his power sword crackling with energy. "The Emperor is with us this day!" The Salamanders redoubled their efforts, bolstered by the support fire from the salvaged weapon. But even as they pushed back against the Xenos tide, Zavis knew the battle was far from over. The strange structure still loomed behind them, its mysteries yet unsolved. The Tyranid threat was far from extinguished. As he cleaved through another wave of smaller creatures, the captain's mind raced. They had bought themselves some time, but how long could Pyroclast keep the ancient weapon functioning? And what new horrors might the hive mind send to counter this unexpected resistance? With grim determination, Zavis prepared to face whatever came next, knowing that the fate of his brothers and the secrets of this world hung in the balance. As the assault cannon continued its relentless barrage, the Tyranid horde seemed to absorb the punishment with terrifying resilience. Despite the growing mountains of Xenos corpses littering the battlefield, their numbers appeared undiminished, a testament to the overwhelming force the hive mind had committed to this world. Captain Zavus, seeing the opportunity created by the cannon's devastating fire, made a quick decision. "Advance!" he roared over the Vox. "Use the cannon's fire as cover! We push forward now!" The Salamanders responded instantly, centuries of training and discipline overcoming their fatigue. They moved as one, a green armored wedge driving into the heart of the Tyranid swarm. Pyroclast's expert marksmanship with the salvaged weapon carved a path before them, the hail of rounds creating a corridor of relative safety through the chitinous masses. Brother Ignis took point, his flamer roaring to life once more, having been hastily refueled. Gouts of promethium added to the carnage, incinerating any Xenos that survived the cannon's onslaught. Sergeant Adric flanked the captain, his power fist crackling as it pulverized any creature that got too close. "Keep formation!" Zavis commanded, his power sword a blur of motion as he cut down a leaping Hormagaunt. "Tech Marine Fornax, safeguard that data slate. The answers we seek may lie within." As they pressed forward, the strange structure that had risen from the planet's surface loomed ever larger. Its alien architecture seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, growing more distinct as they neared. Suddenly, a piercing shriek cut through the air, rising above even the roar of the assault cannon. The ground trembled, and the Tyranid masses began to part. "Incoming!" Brother Ignis warned, his helmet's auspex pinging wildly. From the depths of the Xenos horde emerged a monstrous form, A hive tyrant, its massive synaptic appendages crackling with bioelectrical energy. It towered over its lesser kin, armed with crushing claws and a vicious-looking heavy venom cannon. Captain Zavis felt a moment of dread as he realized the hive mind had finally committed its most powerful asset to the fight. The tyrant's presence would reinvigorate the swarm, and its formidable combat prowess could turn the tide of battle in an instant. The hive tyrant bore down on the salamanders, its massive form a nightmarish fusion of organic weapon systems and hyper-evolved killing instinct. Standing nearly twice the height of a space marine, its chitinous exoskeleton gleamed with a sickly iridescence, pulsing veins visible beneath the armored plates. Its head was a horrific blend of insectoid and reptilian features, with compound eyes that glowed with malevolent intelligence. Massive razor-sharp mandibles clipped together, dripping with corrosive venom. Atop its skull, psychic synapses shimmering with bioelectrical energy, broadcasting the will of the hive mind to its lesser kin. One arm ended in a massive scythe-like talon, capable of cleaving through ceramite armor with ease. The other brandished a heavy venom cannon, its organic barrel already beginning to pulsate as it prepared to fire glob-like projectiles of highly corrosive bioplasma. Vast, leathery wings unfurled from its back, each easily spanning the width of a rhino transport. Though clearly capable of flight, on the ground they served as additional weapons, their edges lined with serrated bone blades. Its torso was a mass of rippling muscle, each movement revealing the incredible strength contained within. Smaller arms protruded from its chest, ending in wickedly sharp claws designed for close-quarters evisceration. As it charged, the ground shook beneath its thunderous footfalls. A thick liquid oozed from various glands on its body, forming a protective coating that steamed and sizzled when struck by bolter fire. The tyrant let out an ear-splitting roar, a sound that seemed to reverberate through the very souls of the Space Marines. Lesser Tyranids around it became more frenzied, driven to new heights of savage aggression by the synapse creature's presence. Captain Zavis steeled himself, realizing that this monstrosity represented the culmination of millions of years of evolution, shaped by the hive mind into the ultimate instrument of war. As the beast closed the distance, he knew that the coming clash would determine not just their own fates, but potentially the future of this entire sector. "Brace for impact!" Zavis shouted, raising his storm shield as the hive tyrant unleashed its first devastating attack. "Stand fast, brothers!" Zavis called out, raising his storm shield. "We face the beast itself now. For Vulcan, for the Emperor, we shall not falter." As the hive tyrant charged towards them, its roar shaking the very air, the salamanders braced themselves for what could be their final stand. The secrets of the mysterious structure, the enigma of the Blood Angel's future message, and the fate of their quest now hung in the balance of this climactic confrontation. The twin assault cannons swiveled, their fire redirected towards the approaching hive tyrant. Streams of high-caliber rounds slammed into the beast's armored hide, but to the salamander's dismay, most simply ricocheted off or embedded shallowly in its thick exoskeleton. Recognizing the threat, a trio of heavy intercessors stepped forward from the firing line. Their heavy bolt rifles roared to life, each shot a miniature explosion as they impacted the tyrant. Chunks of chitin and ichor flew off where the rounds found purchase, but the monster's advance didn't slow. "Concentrated fire!" shouted Sergeant Adric, his own bolter adding to the barrage. The hive tyrant pressed on, shrugging off damage that would have felled lesser creatures. Its compound eyes fixed on Captain Zavis, recognizing him as the leader of this Space Marine force. With frightening speed for a being of its size, the tyrant closed the distance. Its venom cannon pulsed, launching globules of bioplasma towards the salamander's line. "Evasive action," Zavis ordered, diving to the side as the corrosive projectile splashed against the ground where he had stood moments before, eating through the rocky surface with alarming speed. Brother Ignis stepped forward, his flamer belching forth a stream of promethium fire. The tyrant's outer layer of protective mucus ignited, but the creature pushed through the flames, seemingly unaffected by the intense heat. As it neared melee range, the tyrant's massive scything talons swung in a wide arc, forcing the Space Marines to duck or risk decapitation. Xavis raised his storm shield just in time to deflect a blow from one of its smaller arms, the impact still sending him skidding backward. "We need to find a weak point," Xavis called out, his mind racing for a strategy. The beast's natural armor seemed all but impenetrable to their standard weaponry, and its regenerative abilities were quickly closing what few wounds they had managed to inflict. As the salamanders fought to keep the hive tyrant at bay, the air around them began to shimmer strangely. The mysterious structure behind them pulsed with an otherworldly energy, responding to the intense psychic presence of the Synapse creature. Xavis realized that this battle had become more than just a fight for survival. The secrets of this world, the future of their quest, and perhaps the fate of the entire sector now hinged on their ability to bring down this monstrous embodiment of the Tyranid threat. As the hive tyrant continued its relentless assault, pushing the salamanders back step by step, a new sound cut through the chaos of battle. At first, it was barely perceptible, a low hum that seemed to emanate from the mysterious tower behind them. Captain Xavis, narrowly avoiding another swipe of the tyrant's massive talons, chanced to glance back at the structure. His eyes widened as he saw a previously dormant section atop the tower spring to life, pulsing with an otherworldly energy. The hum grew louder, building to a crescendo that made the very air vibrate. Xavis tensed, fearing this unknown force might target them, but his concern quickly turned to amazement as a brilliant beam of energy lanced out from the tower, striking the hive tyrant square in its midsection. The monster let out a deafening shriek of pain and surprise, staggering backward from the impact. Its previously impenetrable hide now sported a smoldering wound, ichor oozing from the charred flesh. Seizing the moment, Xavis bellowed into the Vox. "All units, concentrate fire on that wound. Now's our chance." The salamanders responded with practiced efficiency. The twin assault cannons swiveled, their streams of rounds now finding purchase in the tyrant's weakened armor. The heavy intercessors adjusted their aim, heavy bolt rounds punching deep into the creature's exposed innards. "For Vulcan and the Emperor!" Sergeant Adric roared, his power fist crackling as he charged forward, aiming to exploit the beast's momentary vulnerability. Brother Ignis's flamer found new effectiveness, the Prometheum now able to ignite the tyrant's inner tissues through the breach in its exoskeleton. The Xenos monstrosity thrashed in agony, its synapse linked to the lesser creatures momentarily disrupted by the intense pain. Xavos himself leapt into action, his power sword aimed at the wound. "Press the attack, brothers. We end this beast here and now." As the salamanders rallied, pouring everything they had into this unexpected opportunity, the tower behind them continued to pulse with energy. Whatever ancient technology or alien power had awakened seemed to have turned the tide of battle in their favor. But even as hope surged through the Space Marines, Xavis knew the fight was far from over. The hive tyrant, though grievously wounded, was still a terrifying opponent. And beyond this immediate threat, the mysteries of this world and the implications of the tower's sudden activation loomed large in the captain's mind. As the hive tyrant reeled from the combined assault, Captain Xavis's tactical acumen kicked into high gear. He keyed his Vox, his voice cutting through the chaos of battle. "Heavy units to your positions!" A squad of salamanders, their armor adorned with intricate drake scales and emblems, testaments to their triumphs over the great fire drakes of Nocturne, stepped forward. These veterans moved with purpose, their every motion speaking of centuries of battlefield experience. They knelt in unison, shouldering their Imperial-commissioned rocket launchers. The weapons, masterfully crafted and lovingly maintained, gleamed even in the dim light of the war-torn planet. Xavis's eyes locked onto the tyrant's wound, which was already beginning to close thanks to the creature's remarkable regenerative abilities. Time was of the essence. He raised his power sword, pointing directly at the exposed flesh of the Xenos monstrosity. Fire! The captain's command rang out, clear and resolute. In perfect synchronization, the heavy weapons team squeezed their triggers. 3 warheads erupted from the launchers with a deafening roar, leaving trails of thick, gray smoke in their wake. The rockets screamed towards the tyrant, their payload promising devastation. The massive Xenos beast, still disoriented from the tower's energy blast and the salamander's concentrated fire, failed to react in time. Its compound eyes widened in what might have been the closest thing to fear a Tyranid could experience. As the warheads closed in on their target, time seemed to slow for Captain Zavos. He watched, breath held, knowing that this moment could decide the fate of not just this battle, but potentially their entire mission on this mysterious world. The rockets streaked towards the Hive Tyrant's exposed wound, carrying with them the hopes of the battered salamanders and the promise of retribution for their fallen brothers. The impact was mere seconds away, and its result would undoubtedly shape the course of the battle to come. The rockets found their mark with devastating precision, embedding themselves deep into the Hive Tyrant's exposed wound. For a heartbeat, there was silence. Then a thunderous explosion erupted from within the creature's body. The blast tore through the Tyrant's midsection, ripping it apart with catastrophic force. It was as if a tank had been hit by a powerful anti-armor round, but on a far more grotesque, organic scale. The monster's upper body was violently separated from its lower half, a massive hole now gaping where its torso had been. Bits of flesh, bone, and chitinous armor rained down across the battlefield. The creature's spine was fully exposed, a grisly testament to the power of the salamander's strike. For a moment, the towering beast swayed, its nervous system struggling to comprehend its own destruction. Then, with a ground-shaking impact, it toppled backward, crushing scores of smaller Tyranids beneath its massive bulk. The psychic link that had bound the swarm together was instantly severed. Without the Hive Tyrant's controlling influence, the remaining Tyranids fell into disarray. Their coordinated assault devolved into chaotic, frenzied attacks, driven now only by their base, primitive instincts. Seeing the tide turn, Captain Zavis seized the moment. "Blades out!" he roared, his voice carrying across the battlefield. The salamanders on the front line responded instantly, drawing their chainswords with practiced efficiency. The weapons roared to life, their adamantium teeth spinning furiously, belching black smoke as they hungered for Xenos flesh. With renewed vigor, the Space Marines surged forward. Their chainswords tore through the disorganized Tyranid ranks with brutal efficiency. Limbs were severed, carapaces were shredded, and alien blood flowed freely. The smaller creatures, no longer guided by higher intelligence, began to scatter, their hive mind cohesion shattered. Zavus led the charge, his power sword crackling with energy as he cleaved through the enemy. "For Vulcan! For the Emperor!" he shouted, his brothers echoing the war cry as they pressed their advantage. The Tyranid lines, once an impenetrable wall of chitin and claw, now broke apart under the salamander's relentless assault. Victory, which had seemed so distant mere moments ago, was suddenly within grasp. As they fought, pushing the Xenos back, the strange tower behind them continued to pulse with energy. Captain Zavis knew that while this battle might soon be won, the mysteries of this world and the true purpose of their quest were only beginning to unfold.